tonight's talk, our tree warden, was inspired by a thought I had last February. So I called the tree warden and found out he had been on the job a little over a month, maybe, and I wanted him to come and talk to the club. When I realized that a lot of trees are coming down, sometimes they are planted, sometimes they're not replaced, and I had no idea. Sometimes things are getting pruned that I didn't think should be. And I realized that I really didn't understand the process of how, who's making these decisions. You know, who has authority? Can the residents, can we have any input to it, you know, and how can we have a connection here? I called Brian, again, who's new to the job. He could not have been more receptive to the idea, very, very interested in bridging a cooperative arrangement with the residents. So he's going to talk to you a lot tonight about some of the different things that he's got planned for the future and just how he interfaces with different groups and just how we can all work together to improve our urban forest. That's what it's called here at Wethersfield. So we had an overwhelming response. We're so excited to see so many people here tonight. I was getting a little nervous because the room capacity is 50 people. And I think we've got 49. Yeah, so I was a little nervous. I was going to have to tell my husband he might have to step out. So given that response, and I also heard from a number of people who could not come and want to know if there'd be another talk. So Brian is thinking about it, if we can work it out, space and whatever, maybe tie something into Arbor Day, if possible. I think it's great. He's very, very receptive. The one thing that I want to tell you tonight is that everybody's got a tree that they're worried about in their yard, front yard, or a specific tree, or an issue about something. Tonight is an informational talk, high level talk, okay? We're going to talk about plans going forward, how decisions are made, and how the community has input, exactly what his responsibilities are, what he has authority over, and how anybody could has a question. How do you go about, raising a question about whether or not something really needs to be done? So we do not have time tonight to talk about everybody's individual trees. I'll tell you that right now. And if we can go there, we're going to have to pull us back in a little bit. But he's great. That Brian brought lots and lots and lots of business cards, and he told me to let you know he's completely available to make appointments, to come out and talk to you about any problems you have. So he's very responsive, and we're very excited to have him.
Tree problems.
Tree problems. But anyway, so that's right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Kenny, who's been on the job since last January. So just over a year.
Well, first I want to thank everyone for coming, the Garden Club especially for having me. This is awesome. It's great to see everyone and be able to talk to the community. My name is Brian Kenny. I've been working in the tree landscape industry for about 15 years. I grew up in Windsor, right up the highway, and I started at Loomis JP, and I had a wonderful mentor up there that just loved trees, and I decided that this would be my passion, and went to UMass Amherst. Natural resource conservation, urban forestry focus, and moved down to Maryland, became an arborist down in Maryland for about 5 years, and then moved back up and did a couple different things, and landed my feet here in Wethersfield just last January 10th was my 1 year. And this is a great community, awesome trees, beautiful large trees, and a lot of smaller trees that are going to grow larger, and I can't wait to watch them grow and develop and prune them and do all the work for them and help them grow. So what is the tree department? The tree department for Wethersfield, and lucky to have a tree department because most towns don't have a tree department per se. They have a parks crew that has an arborist or a tree warden, and they go out and do the tree work when they can. This is a full-time, two-person department that we go out and we do it all year round. And in the winter, we get help from the Parks Department and the Highway Department to do larger jobs that we can't do with two people. And throughout the year, the Parks Department helps a lot as well with larger jobs. But we're out there every day pruning, removing hazardous trees. We're out there planting those trees, the newer trees that we install. We have to go and water those trees also throughout the growing season when it's hot, dry, and taking care of those. So we're doing all that. Like I said, Parks Department helps a lot with that stuff though too when they're slow, and it's a great partnership. Down at the garage, everyone's there to help everyone, and it is amazing. Just all together organization or physical service. So. So with the tree pruning, we're doing on a work order base right now. This is just people call in, they say, oh, I have a tree in my front yard. Is it a town tree? What's wrong with the tree, or what can be done with the tree? And I go out there and assess that tree and say, well, the tree is healthy, or the tree needs pruning, or the tree doesn't need anything at all. And with that, we decide we'll come back and do something to this tree, dead wood the tree, reduce a tree in a certain way if it's growing towards a house. And this is all town trees, so it could be in right-of-ways in your front, along the front, or it could be on the other side of the sidewalk, and it's still town property because the town owns a right-of-way in areas that are larger than other areas. So you really don't know until you ask that question. And I always want to tell everyone that ask the question, call physical services, because that tree might be a town tree. And that town tree could be cared for by us. Not a lot of times, but sometimes you show up and that tree has been taken care of by another company for many years, and now the homeowner comes and asks, oh, well, we're going to take this tree down, but now we decided to make sure it's not a town tree. Well, those 3 trees in your front yard were town trees all along, and the town could have been taking care of them, but you had a non-licensed, non-qualified person pruning those trees for years, and we don't want that. We want to help you maintain these trees for a healthier urban forest. And I really, if you have any question, if there's town property near your property, always call and we can come out and look, and we can have the surveyor go out and make sure it's not a if it is a town tree or not. So. What else do we do? We work with the highway department for stump removal. If we do take down a hazard tree, we try to remove those stumps. If it's by the highway department by digging it up, or we sub out all our stump grinding, and I try to do it twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring, depending on how many trees were removed or how many stumps are out there. And I try to keep an inventory of all the stumps, especially the ones that we remove. I do keep a list of, but there's always those stumps out there that have been out there for years, and I try to keep note of all those. So we try to do our best, and then in those areas is mark if those need to be replanted or not, depending on the area. So that's what we're doing all the time with that work order based program. While we're out there, we're looking at the other trees around the area that are town trees or in parks. And we're trying to assess those as well. While we're doing that job, maybe a tree right next to it, there's a problem. So if we have nothing else, we will then prune that tree or save it for another time. It's jumping around town. It's something that It's not the best way of doing this, and there's better ways to address these trees in a yearly, or not yearly, maybe every 4 years, cycle prune these trees, or at least assess each tree, and that's future down the road that we want to work on. All right, Wethersfield Urban Forest. Wethersfield Urban Forest is amazing. I mean, not all inclusive to town property, but there's over 140 notable trees in Wethersfield. It is amazing. 14 of them are state champs. They're largest tree of their species and kind. And some of those are on town property. We have two, one of the largest pin oaks, and the second largest one is right on the green. They're amazing trees, and they're all over. We have a huge black walnut right next to, no, right down the road on Main Street.
Oh, for a restaurant?
Yeah.
Charles? Oh,
Sorry, it's up in the air. Every building is, yeah, Keeney Center. Perfect. Awesome. Good. Yeah, oh, did you? Good, good. So there's beautiful large trees throughout this community, and it's a privilege to work with them and do stuff and help them grow and stay healthy. With that, there's really, it was very well managed before for dead trees. There's not a lot of dead trees in our right-of-ways. There's not a lot of dead trees in our parks. It was very well managed in that sense. There was new trees planted, but there's always a way to do better. And I'm here and I hope to do better. Now, when you look at our urban forests, we all walk around Main Street and on the greens and everything, and we see all these beautiful trees. But then when you start walking outside of the old town down here, you start walking streets, not street. There's many empty streets throughout our town that had trees at one point, and they were removed for some reason, maybe decline, dead, maybe power lines, and for some reason they were just never replanted, most likely budget reasons. And this is where we need to focus. Down here, it's very heavily forested, more or less, than in urban forests. There's many trees, large trees. We need to start focusing on our streets further away from down here. And that's something that we have to look at and manage, while managing the larger, bigger trees down this way. With those empty streets, there were trees there, better suited trees. Those trees maybe were planted and they declined, and I don't know how old they were, but better suited trees for our streets in the right of ways, and focusing on developing a tree program where we can plant those trees that are going to live for years and years and years and years and give us those benefits further down the line. Shade our streets, or shade our streets. Give us all those stormwater benefits and everything that we really need, especially living in town. You all live in town. We had all that water last year and everything. More trees to soak up that water, stormwater runoff, everything. Just more the better. So, where I want this in future is, I touched on before, but a cycle pruning instead of that work order base going around. I would love to put these sessions of town for every 5 years, at least assessing each tree and making sure everything's healthy. Any defects in that tree, checking them again to make sure nothing's grown, nothing has gotten bigger, like a cavity or some sort like that. Because every tree has a defect, we can all go walk around and see that every tree can have a cavity. Every tree has a limb that is scary, but to go and look at that every few years is where we need to be, instead of just saying, let's just remove this tree because it has a cavity. It's a focus on that. The rules we follow. Every town needs a tree warden, or has to have a tree warden by the state of Connecticut. I'm for Wethersfield. We have the Glastonbury tree warden here. So the state mandates that you have a tree warden to manage your urban forest. And we're lucky enough to have a tree crew as well to do that instead of subbing all of it out. I'm on the ground every day looking at this stuff and out meeting with you all, the residents and everything. Dealing with that. We also have a tree ordinance in town, which is a set of rules that gives me the ability to address issues with trees, even on private property. Any tree that is a hazard that is hanging over town property or town right-of-way, we're allowed to go in and ask for that tree to be removed or pruned in a certain way, so it's not a hazard to right-of-ways, town right-of-ways or town streets. This happens a lot, and I get a lot of questions. I get a lot of calls. Probably once a month I get a call that my neighbor's tree is hanging over my backyard and it's dead and it's a hazard and you need to do something about it. You need to cut this tree down, or you need to tell. I have no authority over that. I really don't. The tree needs to be hanging over town property or town right-of-way that affects the many residents. I can't go and tell a neighbor to cut down a tree for another neighbor. And it's hard to go and tell people that, but it's not. There's no authority. I have no authority over that. So within that tree ordinance, we also have the ability to find people that remove trees from town property, town right-of-ways. These right-of-ways can be in the front of your house. These right-of-ways can be in the back of your house. If a tree is on town property and you remove that tree, then we are able to fine you amount that is stated in the ordinance and have you replace that tree or with another tree, or how many trees you cut down. You replace each and every one of those trees that you cut down with another tree. There has been some instances of this, and I haven't found anyone yet, but it's I don't want to. I want to educate people, and this is a great way to do that. Is if you think it's town property or you don't know whose property it is, call, because it could be town property, and we will do that work. If it is, you live on the backside of a park, and the park is in your backyard, we will go back there and look at those trees to see and assess those trees to see if there's hazards, and we will mitigate those hazards instead of having a landscaper or another tree company go and you spend that money on it. We will always look to make sure it's on town property or not. Even in those forested areas, we want to maintain trees. We want to protect our trees. So. With that, I have backing from residents like you, but I also have a shade tree commission that it stands behind me. It's a group of 5 residents that live in town. A few of them have been on the board for many, many years, and they're a great group of people that really, they help me, because it's hard to go down a street and say a complaint or a tree failed in a certain way, a branch, and I have to be the one to stand up and say, this tree needs to come down. I don't want the tree to come down. I don't want to cut down that tree, but sometimes it's necessary. The risk is too high, and I have a shade tree commission that we all go and look at the tree and we all vote on the tree to be removed or to save that tree, and it's good to have them. They're a great group of people, and they help me a lot. And also learning in town. They also help me with planting. I let them know where we're planting, what we're going to plant. They help me with decisions on any kind of tree decision. We meet every Monday, or every second Monday of the month we meet, and the community is welcome to see the agenda, and if you ever have questions on the agenda, you can come to those meetings and voice your opinion on these. We haven't had it. Yes.
Where is that notification?
So it's on the website, the town website, and it's going to be under commission meetings, and you can go to the Shade Tree Commission, and the agenda's posted before the meeting. It should be 3 days. I usually post it on a Thursday or Friday, and the meeting would be on that Monday, the second Monday of every month. So you can look at that and see if there's trees coming down. You all can go look at those trees and say, why is this tree coming down? And question that. And I'm more than happy to have everyone come and say, we don't want this tree down. And you can figure out why the tree is coming down, really. I can tell you my reasoning, and the board can tell you their reasoning as well, why they think the tree should come down. And we can take your opinion into that factor. It's hard sometimes to say that that tree needs to go, but at a certain point, the life of the tree, the risk of it outweighs the risk. So yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, this is a question. So, finish, please.
No, go.
Well, a number of years ago, we had a tornado, and it wiped out a lot of trees on Wilkin Hill Road and Church Street. And I noticed that one section of Wilton Hill has been replaced, but there was small trees. Can you talk about your budget and what kind of trees you prefer? Okay, I get that you don't want them to get into the wires, but something grander than, dogwood. Excuse me. There are now, types of elm that are resistant to disease. There are maple trees that are more compact,
There's so many
etc.
different.
What is your, first of all, your budget, and also what kind of trees do you look at planting to replace?
All right, so my budget is very small. Very small budget. We are working, I am working on getting more money for that. There's grants out there that help that. Some of the grants we don't qualify for, so I'm hoping in the future there's more and more grants out there that we can go for more money, and also getting money from different areas and help from different departments to plant these trees, or even working with other people.
Like getting grants and things like that?
So the types of trees, it all depends on the area, and I want to say that we can plant elm under power lines, but we can't. It's not a good place for it. We don't want to plant a large shade tree under power lines, because in the future that tree will be pruned, and that tree will be pruned in a way that it's not healthy for that tree. And we see it all over. We see the shaping, the one-sided tree.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about planting the right tree in the right place. And for those under the power lines, it would be to plant a smaller tree that will survive in a little small area. There's also ways around that. We can plant further back from the power lines or across the street from the power lines to put a larger shade tree. And this is where finding those planting sites and finding the right tree for those planting sites. Yeah, there's many different trees. There's columnar trees. There's dwarf trees that will get to a size that won't interrupt. But it's the right tree for the right place. And to plant a shade tree under power lines is not the right thing to do.
I get that.
Yeah.
But, the power lines that are on one side of the street. And
Yeah, it's always, we can look at the other side of the
Yes,
street.
the Woken Hill seems to be, it's not the lovely street that it used to be before the tornado.
Yeah, and I didn't see it before the tornado, but yeah.
Do you, you were talking about getting trees and such and going for grant. Do you accept donations?
I would love to accept donations. We do memorial trees all the time for people, and we plant them in spots where they want, and if that spot is in your front yard in town right away, we will plant that and be happy to. I do have money each year to plant trees. Last year, I think I planted about 16 in the spring, and then another 20, 25 in the fall I planted. Trees are very expensive though.
Yeah.
And we have to plant, in our ordinance, it has to be 1.5" caliber or greater, and I like to plant that 2 to 2.5 inch caliber tree, which is pushing almost $400 per tree.
Do you make the trunk?
Caliper size, yeah. Yep. So,
Okay, so following with that, so say somebody did want to donate a tree, is that something that you would purchase?
Yep. So the way that goes is I would look at the site, you would ask for a tree, I would look at the site, and we could work together on what kind of tree it is, but it has to be perfect for that site. I don't want to plant a tree that's not going to survive for many
You give
years.
them probably choices.
I will give you about 3 choices, and you can pick from that. And then what I do is I'll plant it when I'm planting the rest of the trees, and then you could always put money into the fiscal plant tree thing.
Do you, so say for instance, I want to have a tree for my parents.
Yeah.
It can't be at my house but would you have areas that you would recommend?
Of course, yeah.
I would say, I could call you and say, I want to donate a tree in the town of Wethersfield, and then you would have the site.
Yeah, so a lot of memorial trees are planted in parks and everything, and what I do is take that request, and I work with Kathy Bagley, who's head of Parks and Rec, and we find a spot in a park usually, or if you don't mind that tree being planted on the street side, then we plant on street side, and I'm more than happy to do that.
And then you take care of that tree too.
If it's in a town right of way or town park, we maintain those trees, we water them. So.
Do you want to speak to the grant?
Yeah. So I was getting it. No, it's okay. Real quick, I know everyone asked about EverSource and everything. What my thing with EverSource is, every town receives a circuit map each year, and I go out and review that. What circuits they're pruning, what areas they're pruning each year, and what EverSource does, they come back and say, we have a hazard tree that needs to be removed, or a tree near power lines that needs to be removed on town property. I would go look at that tree, and I would bring that tree to the Shade Tree Commission, and we would all vote to see if that tree really needs to go or not. So really, that's the whole scoop of EverSource, and from there, we'll talk about the grant. So I received a grant that we went for. It's a urban community forest grant, and this will help me develop a management plan for our urban forest. It's a tree inventory of all street trees in the town, and a contractor will come out. It will be coming out, and they'll be measuring and creating a species list and everything of those trees. So the DBH, the diameter breast height, they'll measure that tree. They will say what kind of tree it is and the location. It's going to be put on a GIS platform where you could go in and click on that tree and say, oh, it's a red maple in front of my house, or it's a sugar maple. So I hope to do all street trees in town. We only got a certain amount of money for this, and they're going to do as many trees as possible, all street trees, and then if there's any extra money left over, they will start going to the parks. But if they don't finish the parks, then myself, and I'm hoping volunteers will come out and help me one day measure some trees, and we can all talk about the trees in some parks and areas, and we can all get to know these trees in our community, in our green spaces. All the help would be appreciated. But with this inventory, we will know what our urban forest is made up of. How many maples we have in town, how many oaks we have in town, what are we lacking, what are we have way too many of. If a disease or insect comes through and takes out all our maple trees, where do we stand at that point? Just like the ash tree situation, we lost so many ashes. We will know what we're going to lose and how we can replace that. It's a management tool that will help me develop a plan for the town of the tree pruning and tree assessing. It will develop a plan for tree planting. Where are we lacking? We can all drive streets and say, we need a tree here, we need a tree there, but that street might have 20 other trees on it, and another street further up in the community might have none. So do we need to plant another tree right now on that street, or do we need to go to the street that has no trees on it and plant up there? So and it'll give you an idea, why are we planting in this community or in this area of the community?
I have 2 questions. Congratulations on the grant.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome to Wethersfield.
Thank you.
We're all happy to know that. Yeah, and you're young and you're.
Yeah.
I was wondering, you sub out the stump removal. Do you sub out the maintenance, or does Wethersfield have a bucket?
We have a bucket truck.
And what happened down at the Cove? And is the budget for the Cove trees different from your budget, and will they ever be replacing it?
All the ash trees that were removed at the Cove?
Yeah, what was?
So they planted a bunch of trees along the path already.
Yes, they did, but.
I was not involved in that. I know a little bit of it just through stories and everything.
Who takes care of it? Who was the person who took them down?
They were all, I believe they were all ash trees, so they were infected by emerald ash borer, and they were all dying.
Christensen, the old tree warden, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
so
he
is that
replaced
part?
them.
More trees down there, and maybe a memorial tree, or something we can put down there and create that more forest look that it was before. I would be happy to
Do you
do so.
maintain the trees down there?
I maintain all trees on town property, on green spaces, town right-of-ways, parks, schools.
But you're not up there in a bucket truck. Are you done? We have that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we have one bucket truck and one chip truck with a chipper, and it's just 2 of us. And like I said before, during the winter, and sometimes we have the Parks Department helping us as well. But it's a lot of work, but like I said, be happy to have a tree department, because a lot of towns don't have that. And it's a really good situation that the town is in, that have that department and everything, and I'm proud to be part of that, and hope to develop a better urban forest for the future for everyone. And when I'm gone, for everyone after that, and hopefully have a lot more notable and a lot more state champs in town from our planting now. And it's a real pleasure to be here to do that.
You have the town have a nursery where they can learn.
Yes.
Is that something?
I would love to have a nursery. That takes more time to do than myself and my assistant have. Yeah, it takes a lot more. I would love to do that, but it's the trees that we do buy. I try to plant them within the week that we buy them. I don't want trees just sitting around in the yard. We don't have a proper place to store them where there's adequate water supply and everything like that. So it really is going to the nursery, getting those trees, and then planting them right away. We don't have a budget also to buy a ton of trees and stock it. So.
When a tree is slated for removal, does it get posted?
Yep. So state law mandates that they're posted for 10 days before removal, and like I said, it would be on the agenda for removal, so you can always look. But yeah, we put a sign on it saying this tree is going to be removed. It doesn't say a date we're going to remove it, but it will say this tree will be removed. And I have my emails on there, so you can always email, call, and we can talk about that. And I'm always willing to meet residents out at a tree that is going to be removed and talk about it and hopefully work out. So, and then we posted on the Facebook page, Village Association Facebook page. They post every event they have. They also do a Arbor Day event that is great. We have the fourth graders from the school come down and they create poems of trees, and it's a great celebration every year. And look for that on their page as well, and it should be posted on pretty much all the Wethersfield pages. It's a great thing to plant a tree in that day, as long as it's not raining. They do great work for the town.
Do you go across the other side of the Silent Beam? Does that come into your territory through those neighborhoods?
Yeah.
Or you just focus?
So no, all of Wethersfield, the whole entire town. There are state roads in Wethersfield. You have Jordan Lane, it's a state road, so we don't maintain any trees on that. We don't maintain trees on Prospect, Maple, Wells, all Wells. Yeah, yep. So those are all state roads. Silas Dean, we don't maintain trees on Silas Dean or Berlin Turnpike.
Who does?
State. That's all state. They're routes, so they're all state roads.
Do they concur with you at all? Or do you have any authority or input on those?
State roads.
Yes.
If they do post, I can always ask. But that's another relationship that I have to develop and they're right up the road. But I need to develop that relationship too.
Where do they post anything that's coming down? Where do they post what's happening? That's where the black box part comes in.
So who is the contact board, and like who in the state, like is there a specific board? Tree warden?
The state has their own arborists that they have, and so they do all their own work on their roads.
So any trees that there's an issue with contact them or you contact them?
You can always call me on that, and I can contact them, or you can contact the state yourself. But I would be happy to, since they are in right-of-ways along roads in Wethersfield, I would always be welcome to go out and look at them and then contact the state to see what they would do. Oh, I think.
Go ahead.
I think it was,
When you're purchasing trees to replace or just purchasing new trees, you concentrate on replacing native trees with native trees rather than cultivars or, the dreaded Norway maple or one of those kind of
I'm not planting Norway maybe.
We have to let you go.
So it's all depending on the area. Are we planting in a park? I would probably go for a native tree. But I also will plant non-native as well. For a roadway, along a roadway, a lot of the natives don't like the salt, don't like the compaction, don't like the small area, and a lot of the non-natives do, and they thrive, and they create that same concept of shade and cooling and stormwater uptake and everything, and health benefits that a native does. And they're better suited, they're going to live longer, they're going to do better in that spot. So I would say in some cases I do natives along roadways, but in some cases I don't, and put in non-native that will
And
do a
you're
lot
taking
better.
into consideration the invasive ones that,
Yeah, we're not planting invasive trees.
like on the school properties, do you have anything put on what they put in?
Yep, so
Because they did a disaster at the Wethersfield High School and half of them are dead already.
Yeah, I was up there pruning out all the dead
aren't
this
they all?
past year, so, yeah, so I was not involved in that. And really, any landscape project that's being done at schools or town buildings, all of it would have to go through myself and the Parks and Rec. Because there are trees, they're being planted on town property. I have the rights to say, no, we don't want that tree, or.
Is there a current map of like the state champs and you said 100+ notable trees in Wethersfield?
You can go to Connecticut Notable Tree, and you can look up all the trees in Wethersfield, and they have them separated for each town. Not all notable trees are give location though, because some of those notable trees are in people's yards. There might be many notable trees in one person's yard. So they don't post them all, but they will say Wethersfield, and in some cases they will give you a location. And they will give pictures of them as well. So if you want to have a scavenger hunt and say, oh, I think I know where that tree is, here's my tree, maybe, as long as you're not trespassing, you can go and look at it.
What are some of the non-natives that do well along the street?
So a lot of non-natives that do well around streets is Zelkova that kind of took over for the elm tree. Is a very hardy tree on roadsides that will do well. I don't like their branching structure. They're a pain in the butt to prune. They're needed. So, but they do well in those areas. Oh, you put me on the spot. No, it's okay. There's so many. Have to start thinking about moving some of these trees that are growing further south this way. And some are zone hardy still. They have that 5 or 6 range that we could start looking at the plant as well. I know willow oaks will be a good suitable street tree. I used to plant them in Maryland. Started planting them in Greenwich. I worked for Greenwich for a while. Started planting them down there. There's a lot of non-native trees to this region, but native to America that we can start bringing up and filling in areas, as long as they are zone hardy, because we still will get cold winters and everything, and cold snaps that will put a tree in decline.
Persimmon?
Persimmon, that's a good tree, and that's you can grow them around here.
Yeah, I think it's starting to be still.
Yeah.
Yes, I want to thank you for taking the time and the Garden Club for bringing you in here. That's great. I want to circle back to the Cove as an example and get your thoughts, philosophy. I know you have to work to the code. We'll all know a couple years ago the hurricane came through and did quite a bit of damage to the urban canopy down at the Cove, and it was safetied at that time by, when all the trees were down, just chopping up into big log sections and leaving them along the west bank of the Cove. And as a result of them never being removed, in my opinion, properly taken care of in terms of urban forest management, there's a tremendous amount of invasive growth down that way. Does that fall within your bailiwick to address that growth before the rest of those trees are destroyed?
So,
I'm at the Cove along the path, and it's referred to as a forested section.
Yeah.
And there's a great deal of invasive growth lineage up through those trees.
There's a lot of knotweed down there.
Bittersweet.
Bittersweet's everywhere.
Well,
Not weeds everywhere.
but all that is being left there, it's getting worse.
Yeah.
And we're going to lose a few trees that remain because that area hasn't been managed.
Yeah.
Is that responsibility fall with your area? I realize it's only so much time, it's so much money for the two of them.
Exactly.
Okay?
So we can always meet down there and look at it together, and you can show me exactly where you're talking about. It is tough because when you lose a lot of trees in one area and you leave an open space, invasives that are in the area or dropped by birds will take over very quickly, and then natives that should be growing there can't develop because they're shaded out.
You just described exactly what's happened because we never cleared it out.
It's just natural.
Well, it's not.
But
Yeah. I wouldn't say
naturally remove trees from storms and never taken care of, replaced, or anything to fill that void. It's tough in those areas. It's easier to do it on a town green and everything, but when you
But the invasive issue, for example, you did some work up by the Keisha barn.
Yeah.
You went through there and cleaned that out a bit. Is that the type of thing you would typically do in other spots, like down there, for example?
Yeah. So what we did up there was encroachment pruning of the athletic fields. A lot of trees were growing for the sunlight, phototropic, just right out over the field, and they've been like that for years and years and just never maintained. So we went in there and took those leaning trees, dead trees and everything, and pruned them back or cut them back, and then mowed the area close to the athletic fields and everything. The problem with that is when you mow it, you really don't remove the invasive. That invasive is still going to grow, especially knotweed. If we're thinking about the same area, that knotweed is going to be back in 2 weeks.
It looks good today, though.
Yeah. Today. But I would love to just meet and we can walk down there and you can show me the areas that you're talking about and we can try to do some.
Okay, I'll send you a contact. Thank you.
I was kind of excited to hear about people donating trees. Is that something that can be more advertised more, like on the town websites and Facebook pages? Because I think that's something I never even thought about, like as a memorial or whatever, and maybe more people would do that if it was more advertised on. I mean, we have, 75 Wethersfield Facebook pages?
I do have some money to plant trees. With this survey, this inventory, it's going to point out the areas that we're lacking. I can go up the street and say we're lacking here.
Yeah.
But these are going to point out good areas, good suitable areas for trees. And I really want to develop that and use that money for those areas that are not urban forestry developed. But I don't want to push that you have to buy a tree for the front of your house. You could always send in and I can manage that by planting some trees some year there, or I don't like
just a fund that people can donate to.
Totally.
I'd like to touch on the donation in memory trees. About 20 years ago, I worked with the tree warden at that time and inquired about this for a dear friend that passed suddenly, and he said areas that trees were allowed to plant. So I was like, can we plant a tree here? And so they have spaces that designated to this and also types of trees. And what I was able to do to get a larger tree because of budget restraints is people that wanted to donate in memory of this person, I collected the money, kept all the names, how much they donated, and gave that all to the tree warden so they were able to purchase a larger tree. And the tree was planted 4 years before the storm the gentleman was talking about on the Broad Street Green, and it's one of the trees that survived that storm. And so it's very beautiful what they do, and I encourage everyone to look into it because you'll be able to contribute to the town as well as gather funds, so they're able to implement purchasing larger trees that so definitely.
I do like planting larger trees, but there's a certain time where it's too large. So
Yes.
I don't want to go and plant a massive tree and put a ton of money into a tree that it's one tree and may not survive. We would love to plant more trees at a smaller caliber and have a better plan for that as well. Less management of watering it. You were first.
So I noticed along where I'm living, we've got the road, a curb with green on it, sidewalk, and then our house. How, what are the requirements to put a tree within that curb?
So in the
Shelf.
in the ordinance, it has to have 2 feet on each side. If it is smaller than that, I grant permission, or I can permit myself to, or us to plant a tree in that is suitable for that area. We also have to say, is that tree going to get too big? Is that tree going to be on the sidewalk? Is that tree going to damage the sidewalk? A lot of trees do damage sidewalks, and it's hard now. The masons have to go out and fix the sidewalk, or we have to have a contractor fix these sidewalks. It's a very delicate thing. But if that green space is that small, your right of way might be even further, and our town right of way might be in your front yard. So now we can move that tree into your front yard that's still in the town right of way and be a town tree. We always ask, and I could always meet you out there and look at it. Go ahead and then.
Just to comment, I've been emailing with you about the Methodist Church tree.
Yes. Yeah.
And we're doing a tree on the way into Millwoods, because that's where our church is.
Yeah.
And we want to do a monument explaining what the tree is, and that will be on the church's property, and the tree will be on the town's property.
Yeah. So.
Decided to do that.
Yeah. The whole memorial tree, it's hard because people want plaques. We don't put plaques on trees. The plaques then could damage a tree or be ripped off the tree. Also, stones on the ground or stuff like that, we try not to do. They do benches in some areas that are good for bench areas, for memorial benches. But we would say, let's just plant the tree. Like in the church, we're going to try to plant it as close as possible to the church property, but still being on town property. Mm-hmm. And they're going to have a plaque on their property.
On a post.
On a post on their property.
Feet away from
So, yeah. Go into that.
I was wondering, when they do the survey and the inventory, are they just going to measure them, or are they going to check the health of them as well?
So there is a, that's where I want to develop a plan. So I'm out checking the health of these trees, and with this inventory, I will be able to go inspect these trees on a 4-year basis and see all the trees, so I can inspect them for myself and not have someone else's. Not that it's going to be bad input,
yeah,
but it's going to be a different input that could be siding to it's not a healthy tree when it's not healthy.
Right.
So I would say that they're going to be more focusing on the type of tree, the genus, species, the DBH of the tree, and the location of that tree, and getting on GIS. And then through that pruning cycle or that assessment cycle, I will be able to look at each tree and see them on a map, and then mark on the map saying, okay, this tree needs to be pruned, removed. Go ahead.
Is the town still an active participant in tree saving?
Yeah, so last year, so I get confused, but we're at 27, 28 years now. Some might say it's over 30. So what I get on the sticker is going to be 28 this year. But it could have been years ago that they might have missed a year and then they didn't count the years before. So it could be more than 30 years, but right now 28 years. It's going to be 28 years this year.
So it used to be that the city had to show that they were spending so much per capita per year on trees or tree maintenance. It used to be $1 or $2.
I think it's $2. Is it $2 or $3? I think I just did it last fall.
It should go up.
But yeah, we have a budget. We have a tree department. We have a tree ordinance. You have a tree ordinance. We do an Arbor Day celebration. We do all the right things to be rated for a Tree City USA. So we spend enough money to be part of that.
So as part of the budgeting in the city budget,
for your department, do you need advocates at a certain time to come in and say there should be more spent on city trees? I bet the answer is yes. And how would we get involved? How would we?
Yeah, so, email me. Talk about this and maybe figure out a way together. And but yeah, I'm very new to this, and maybe other people that work for different towns might have insight, and I can talk to them, and maybe we can develop something, or I can figure out something.
Could you have interns from UMass get credit for helping you?
I would love, instead of interns from UMass, I would love high schoolers, middle schoolers, yourselves, community residents coming out and learning about the trees. I would love to focus on community outreach instead of other towns or other people coming into this town. It's better for everyone else in this town to know what's going on and how we see trees in this town, and learn about the trees in their town instead of having UMass or UMass UConn or whatever. So.
I have a question. This again goes back to what you have authority over. When they did a lot of work along the street and they added a lot of parking, I mean, they really cut into the snow shelf.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of big roots I was watching get cut.
Yeah.
Do you get any say in any of that?
I do, and I get a little bit of say. If it does get too close, I can say no, but they were in. They did cut some roots, but they didn't go throughout the whole tree. They cut only certain little sections of it. Yeah, there might have been some structural roots or whatnot, but on one of the trees, it was a smaller tree that will have the ability to put out new roots and develop. So, go ahead.
Does the state work with you with known infections to disease trees, and do they? At what point do they make a decision that it's going to overtake an area, and they start taking down those trees because they just infect each other? And
the state, I haven't worked with the state that much.
They don't work with towns on that?
If you're talking about like town trees and town right-of-ways, that would be my decision on if the tree needs to go or if we need to keep the tree and see what happens. Emerald ash borer was is a bug, insect, a borer, that will go to majority of the ash trees. There are some ash trees still out there in our community that have no signs or have very little signs of it, of decline, but many did get wiped out. There's now beech leaf disease.
Yeah,
that
just mentioned.
we just have to. They did come out with some treatments for it and everything, but we have to monitor those trees, each tree specifically, and see if it shows any signs, symptoms.
But I mean, do you work with other towns? Because I live in Glastonbury, and we do have that beach problem.
Yeah, every town has it,
I mean, so if we're having it, you're going to have it.
Yeah.
Rocky Hill's going to have it.
Yeah.
How do they work together? I don't understand.
I'm very new to it, and I've met.
But there must be some protocols in place for the state, or no?
Not really.
No.
They do have quarantines and everything like that, or like in Massachusetts when they found the Asian longhorn beetle in Worcester, they took down every maple tree in a couple mile radius or a mile radius of that one tree that might have had one bug in it. I don't have that right now, but I'm hoping to develop that with other communities around us to fight the same fight that everyone's fighting. So, with the beech leaf disease, it's very new to us. We don't know. It happened out in Ohio. I think Ohio it started, and the Ohio beaches are not having the same effect as what we're seeing here. We're seeing it worse here. And they're seeing that it's a little less damaging to the tree, or not all the trees got it or have it. And we're seeing a lot more. You walk through many forests around here, and during summertime, you should be all shaded, but there's openings and light coming through everywhere, and you know you're in a peach tree area. So it's just working. Yeah, I could start working with other communities, see what they're doing, their attack on these situations, and we can develop a program together.
Any more questions?
You can find this, our tree ordinance, you can find online. It'll give you all the rules and everything that we follow in town for any trees that you see, and you could be advocates of this as well. If you see someone posting or damaging town trees, you can always email me and say, hey, outside this address, I think it's a town tree, and someone is putting nails in the tree or doing something to the tree. I'm more than happy to get those emails and go look at it for myself and see what is being done.